Hello and welcome to Uncommon Law, my podcast about true stories from my life experience of over 50 years as a lawyer and trial judge. This is a look at the law from the inside out, stuff they don't teach in law school. This is Judge Rudy Greco, retired justice of the New York State Supreme Court. My friend Tommy was the toughest guy in Flushing High School. And Tommy was a handsome Italian-Irish guy. His father was Italian, mom was Irish, and Tommy was maybe 5'8" or 5'9", weighed about 160 pounds, trim, very, very good-looking fella, but he was a great street fighter. And the thing that made him such a tremendous street fighter was, he had a fierce spirit in him, and he fit the description that the famous Alabama football coach, Bear Bryant, used to talk about looking for as desirable characteristics in his linebackers. He wanted them to be mobile, agile, and hostile. And that was Tommy. He was mobile, agile, and hostile. And he could really, really fight. He had a younger sister, and I had a crush on her in high school a little bit, but we never really got together. And he had a little brother who was a terrific young guy, and his mom was a widow, and I knew the whole family eventually. We all became pretty close over the years. Tommy had come from Manhattan on the east side near the 59th Street Bridge, where he first grew up, and they moved to Whitestone, Queens, which was part of Flushing High School's catchment area. It was a big catchment area, and that was on the northern part, and I was on the southern part of the catchment area called Queensboro Hill, near the Long Island Expressway and Main Street. And I got to know Tommy because he's had a sweetheart who was the best-looking girl in Queensboro Hill, his girl Joanne, and Joanne lived right around the corner from me, and that's how I got to know Tommy. He started hanging out in our neighborhood, and I got to know him. We were not rivals because he was 3 years older than I was, but we became good friends, and we both did a lot of fighting on the street, and we knew it, and we sparred and we shadow boxed together. When I started boxing, Tommy would come to the gym every once in a while, and we became pretty close over the years, but then we lost contact. I went to college and went on. Tommy went on, and we lost contact. And years later, I got a phone call at my law office. And this is, decades later. And this guy said, hello, I'm such and such, and I'm a friend of Tommy's. And Tommy, your friend from high school? I said, of course, I know Tommy, of course. He said, yeah, well, Tommy right now. I said, I haven't seen him. He says, well, he's doing time in federal prison in Florida. He said, but I spoke to him, and I have a problem. My father's in prison, in state prison in New Jersey, a maximum security place down in South Jersey, in the Pine Barrens, alongside, just west of Atlantic City. He says, my father's been convicted of any number of crimes, and he's got a heavy, heavy sentence that he's serving. And he's middle-aged, and by virtue of the sentence that he's got, he's going to die in jail of old age, if he lasts that long. He said, he's down there in South Jersey, and here's the problem. He said, he wants to appeal. And we've spoken to any number of lawyers, and of course, all the convicts are giving him opinions about all of this sort of stuff. And he's totally confused, and he doesn't know what he's doing. He's getting a lot of smoke and mirrors, and he needs somebody objectively to sort this out and give him the straight truth. And Tommy says, you can be trusted 100%. He said, and you know about criminal appeals. You've done them. And need I say more? He said, could you visit him and answer his questions? We'll pay you for it. And he says, it would mean a lot. It would mean a lot to me, and it would mean a lot to my father. And of course, no question here. Tommy says, you're the right person. I said, okay, I could do this. But I'll tell you what, let's keep it a very low-key proposition, all right? He says, sure, that's not a problem. Well, the following week, I find myself at 34th Street in the Hudson River, and there's a helicopter landing strip there, or pad, and the son and I are about to board a big helicopter, which was labeled the Trump Casino. I forget which casino it was, and Trump Taj Mahal or something like that. And this thing runs from 34th Street, and it takes gamblers and high rollers down to Atlantic City. And he booked us. They took passengers, and he booked us onto the helicopter. And as we're about to take off, this thing, I'd never been on a helicopter before, and this thing started rocking and rolling. The noise was startling. The engines are very loud, and the whole thing is vibrating and rocking. and they have a flight attendant on there, and supposedly to serve drinks, but she wasn't serving any drinks because the weather was horrible. Outside, it was a dark gray day. It looked like an impending storm, and it was foggy right there at the Hudson River. And I started saying, what was I thinking? What the hell am I doing sitting in this helicopter here about to take off in a fog? You can't see yourself. And I said, oh my God, what is this? Well, the thing took off before I could think twice about it. And we're up in the sky. And I guess they knew a little bit more than I knew because it was 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and maybe it felt like a year. And we cleared right out of the fog or right through it or right above it, whatever it was. And then we proceeded and we were on our way down south towards Atlantic City. Finally, probably, I don't know, it was a half hour, 40 minutes, whatever it was, we land in Atlantic City. And I'm thinking, okay, low key. And there's a waiting car. But what is it? A white stretch limousine. I said, oh, God. I don't need this. I don't want to show up at a prison in a white stretch limousine. But we couldn't. I said, can we cancel this? No, this is the whole thing. The only thing I could get, I tried to get another car. There's nothing available. I can't get anything. And this is the day. So I arranged, I told him we're going to have a council visit. My father's waiting. And I'm sorry, Rudy, we can't change it or anything. Please. I said, okay, all right, leave it alone and let's just go. And we went. And when we got to the prison, we drove through the Pine Barrens in New Jersey from Atlantic City and down in South Jersey. And we get there. And the whole prison, in about 38 seconds flat, somebody spotted the white stretch limo and then figured out who was coming and what it was all about. And everybody in the prison, on the guards, the prisoners, the warden, everybody knew about our arrival. And next thing you know, we got through all of that. And I got an actual council visit with the young man's father, the guy I was supposed to see. And we sat down in the conference room and he told me about his history. And he was in organized crime in New Jersey on the Jersey Shore. And we went over his trial. We went over his conviction, what the charges were, what he was convicted of. We went over what he thought were the issues with his trial that were maybe appealable. We talked about his sentence. And then he asked me, what do you think, having heard all of this, what do I do here? I want to appeal, but I don't know if I should. It's just a waste of time, a waste of money or anything like that. And what should I think? Well, I said, look, let's start with the most obvious proposition here. And that is your file is marked OC. OC is what prosecutors, federal and state prosecutors put on a file when they think a guy is organized crime. And you have an organized crime background and an organized crime marking on that file. What does that mean? That means you're not going to get 1 ounce of sympathy. Judges they read between the lines in cases and figure out the background, etc., etc. And when any prosecutor or any judge sees OC, they go all out in opposition. And they're not showing anybody any sympathy or giving anybody any breaks. They're going to give you the absolute minimum that you can expect, if they give you that. I said, now, yes, you have errors. Most of them are a waste of time. You don't want to clutter up the record with nonsense, but you have a couple of good points. And look, facing the time that you're looking at to complete your sentence, you have nothing to lose. What can you lose by appealing except the money? It's worth a shot. It's worth a shot. It's a long shot. That's what you have to understand. If I'm you, I'm telling you right now, don't get your hopes up because of that organized crime background and because of the seriousness of the stuff that you're convicted of. The mentality behind all this, and the judges are going to say, this guy has spent his life doing stuff that he never got caught for and he never paid for. And here he is now, and who feels sorry for him? He should have known better. That's what they're going to say, and that's what they're going to do. Well, it wasn't good news. But he was grateful, and he was glad. And he told me, he said, look, I wish you had better news for me, but I understand the truth when I hear it. He said, and I've been getting a lot of all of this stuff, promises and all kinds of nonsense. He said, but now, he says, I'm glad, at least, he said, even though it's bad news, I have a clear idea of my situation, and I can see what it is for what it is. I have no more confusion, and in that sense, I have a certain peace of mind. I'm not happy about being here. I'm never going to be happy about being here, but at least I've got all of that settled. And I know what I'm going to do from now on. He says, there's one guy that I thought, and he has a good reputation here in New Jersey as a particularly good appeals lawyer. I'm going to go along with the appeal. We're going to talk about the 2 or 3 things that you said were the very strong points that I had. And we'll take that shot. At least, I know what I can do and what the expectations probably are. I can't thank you enough for coming. I said, well, listen, I got paid to come here, and Tommy was a friend of mine, and your boy is his friend, so I'm here. I'm sorry I can't give you better news. He says, no, that's okay. So the appeal eventually was lost. I got news that he lost the appeal. Tommy, I had reestablished contact with him just briefly, and I knew a lawyer that was serving time in the same place he was, and this lawyer was unable to protect himself. And I asked Tommy, I said, Tommy, keep an eye on this guy. He was a friend of mine, and he's not a bad guy. He, used some funds that he shouldn't have used. Keep an eye on him. And Tommy says, sure, I'll keep an eye on him. Nothing will happen to that guy as long as I'm here. And he did, which was pretty nice. The trip on the whole was eventful, but it wasn't good news. It was successful because the guy, the client, he got the straight truth. And bad news as it was the truth. And the second opinion dispelled for him all the anxiety and uncertainty that were plaguing him on top of the bad circumstances that he was facing. Thanks for listening. Come back next week for another episode of Uncommon Law, Lessons They Don't Teach in Law School. I'm Judge Rudy Greco. Court is adjourned.